All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're going to talk about a book. But this isn't just any book. It's from the 15th century. It's this quiet spiritual guide that has somehow managed to outlast entire empires and shape countless lives. It's called The Imitation of Christ, and its story is one of, well, just incredible endurance. First, let's just let that sink in for a second. We're talking about more than 500 years. This isn't just some old book collecting dust on a shelf. It has been a real, living, spiritual companion for people for half a millennium. In fact, one introduction to it literally calls it the supreme call and guide to spiritual aspiration. I mean, we live in an age where trends last, what, a week? This kind of longevity is just, it's wild to think about.
And this quote right here, it really puts the scale of its influence into perspective. Get this, with the exception of the Bible, no other Christian writing has been so popular for so long. We're talking about a quiet guide, written by a monk, that has somehow achieved this absolutely staggering popularity. And that, of course, brings us to the big question.
What is it about this book? What connects so deeply with people century after century? How can a guide for 15th century monks possibly speak to our lives today? That's the mystery we're really going to try and unpack.
So, to understand the book, you got to start at the beginning, right? With its origins. And right away, we hit our first mystery. For centuries, nobody could even agree on who wrote it. It was a subject of pretty intense debate.
Yeah, a bunch of names were thrown around over the years. You had famous saints, powerful university chancellors, a whole list of candidates. But, when you actually look at the writing style and the historical evidence, scholars have pretty much settled on one, much quieter figure. Thomas à Kempis. Now, this guy, he wasn't a public figure. He wasn't some famous, powerful theologian. He was a monk. He spent 70 years in a monastery, just copying manuscripts and writing. And it's from this incredibly quiet, contemplative life that one of the most powerful books in history somehow emerged. So, okay, what are these profound insights that have captivated people for so long? Well, it all starts with a single foundational theme. And it's one that really challenges our modern ideas about wisdom. It all comes down to true humility. Right out of the gate, the book it directly challenges our intellectual pride. The author basically asks, so what? What good does it do you to have these deep, complicated discussions about theology if you're not humble? The argument is that knowledge just for the sake of knowledge, just to seem smart, that's actually a dangerous distraction from what really matters. And here's the alternative he proposes. He says, instead of looking outward for all this complex knowledge, look inward. The book argues that a lowly knowledge of thyself, and what that really means is just honestly knowing your own flaws, your own weaknesses, that is a much surer path. And this isn't some modern self-help trend either. For the author, this was a fundamental spiritual necessity. So, the big takeaway here is this. For a Kempis, the path to inner peace isn't about collecting facts or winning arguments. It's about honest self-examination. Like he says, the person who truly knows themselves, well, they couldn't care less about what other people think of them. And this idea, this profound humility, it's the bedrock. It's the foundation for everything else the book teaches. Okay, so once you've got that foundation of humility in place, the book really shifts gears. It becomes this intensely practical, hands-on guide. It basically presents life as this constant internal struggle, and then it gives you a clear path, a roadmap for how to win that fight and actually find some inner peace. The way the book frames it is as this constant battle inside us between two forces, what it calls nature and grace. So, nature. That's kind of our default setting, right? It's selfish, it's always looking for comfort, it's afraid, it always puts me first. But then there's grace, and that's our higher impulse. It's selfless, it's patient, it's focused on something bigger than just ourselves. And the book basically says the entire spiritual journey, the whole shebang, is learning how to choose grace over nature again and again. So how do you actually do that? Well, the book gives some incredibly direct, no-nonsense advice, which we can kind of boil down to these 4 steps. First, you've got to examine your own desires. Make sure you're not just a lover of yourself, as he puts it. Second, learn to endure hard times with patience. It's about finding peace inside the struggle, not just trying to avoid it. Third, you have to cast your cares on a higher power, basically trusting that you're not the one in ultimate control. And fourth, and this is a big one, stop judging other people and stop believing every little thing you hear. The author says that's a huge source of our own anxiety. I mean, these are really powerful ideas, right? But the question remains, why do they still hit so hard, even after 500 years? Let's try to connect this ancient wisdom to our lives today, because that's where we'll find the secret to its incredible staying power. And this quote, this one really gets to the heart of it. Think about it. We live in a culture that is constantly telling us to follow your passion, do what feels good, that fulfillment is all about satisfying our desires. And this book comes along and offers a completely radical alternative. It says, no, true peace comes from resisting passion, from mastering your desires, not being a slave to them. And that's exactly why it still resonates. It's because it speaks to these deep, timeless human problems that we all still deal with. It gives us a path to peace by focusing on the one thing we can actually control, our own inner state. It draws this direct line between pride and anxiety. I mean, that line, in the heart of the proud, there is envy and continual wrath. Doesn't that sound like it could have been written yesterday? And in our age of social media, of constant self-promotion, it's called to be unknown and to be counted for nothing. Wow, that's a really powerful and challenging message for us today. So at the end of the day, what this 500-year-old guide is really offering is a completely radical redefinition of what freedom even is. It's arguing that real freedom, it's not about being able to do whatever you want whenever you want. It's about being free from your own selfish desires. In this view, true freedom is self-mastery, not just self-gratification. And so, that leaves us with one final and pretty challenging question. Our modern world, it is absolutely obsessed with this idea of finding yourself. But the Imitation of Christ proposes a completely different path, the path of denying yourself. So what does that really mean? And could that ancient wisdom actually hold the key to the inner peace that, let's be honest, we're all still searching for? That's something worth thinking about.